Are all of your opinions to within a reasonable degree of probability or certainty with respect to Mr. Depp's damages?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now I'm going to move you to Amber Heard's damages. With respect to Amber Heard's claims for damages, on what subject have you been asked to offer your opinion?
So I was asked to look at the reputational harm and economic loss that Ms. Heard incurred due to the defamatory statements that Mr. Waldman, on behalf of Mr. Depp, made in April of 2020 and again in June of 2020.
And what materials did you review in forming your opinions?
Again, many of the same materials that I reviewed for Mr. Depp's case, which was the deposition testimony, the pleadings, the discovery, all of that was included, as well as expert testimony that was based on statistical analysis of negative social media campaigns that were created, as well as what happened. I talked to Ms. Heard's agents. I read their depositions. I talked to her publicist. I read her deposition. I talked to Ms. Heard herself to get a first-person accounting of what happened from her perspective after those defamatory statements were made. And then I looked at the, again, emails back and forth and texts back and forth with the studio, Warner Brothers, and other producers that the management team was working with to get Ms. Heard more work.
Okay. Now, before I go into the questions that I'm going to ask, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of define this so that we're all on the same page going through it. The jury has seen the three defamatory statements. They're defendants 1245, 1246A, and 1247. And I'm just going to refer to them as the Depp/Waldman statements in asking you all these questions. Will you understand what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Okay, good. Please describe Amber Heard's career prior to the publication of the Depp-Waldman statements.
So Amber's had a long career for someone who is not, is fairly young still. She was in over 50 productions, I believe including Aquaman and Justice League, but let's just say close to 50 productions. Well, certainly 50 productions before the defamatory statements were made. She had, a consistent working actor's career. Her agents were strategic as she started getting more work, that they wanted her to work with better and better directors, to have, the Danish Girl is a film that had a strong director and a strong critical acclaim. And then she went from that to getting Justice League, which is on the bigger budget, is the bigger scale movie, and then, of course, Aquaman and Aquaman 2. So her career was following a very nice, steady rise, and she was on the precipice of a meteoric rise with with Aquaman and Aquaman 2 prior to the statements.
Was Aquaman a successful film in terms of box office sales?
Aquaman was an extremely successful film. It made over $1 billion, and I believe it is the highest grossing DC comic film ever.
Okay. Now, what, if any, accolades did Amber receive for her role in Aquaman? And I'm going to call it, sometimes I'll call it Aquaman 1 just to make sure we don't get confused.
Right. So in Aquaman 1, there were many emails from the director and the producer and
Objection, hearsay.
She's just characterizing, Your Honor. She's not quoting them.
Well, I don't know where it's going. I'll overrule at the moment.
Thank you.
She got emails from the director and the producer stating that they loved her performance.
Objection,
and they loved her work.
hearsay.
You can't say what the emails say, but you can summarize them or characterize them. Can you do that?
Accolading emails? Emails of accolade from her, from the director and the producer.
Objection, hearsay.
Overruled as to that.
Thank you. Okay. What type of press opportunities did Amber have prior to the Depp-Waldman statements?
So the press really loved working with Amber. She was on the cover of many magazines after The Danish Girl, after Justice League, after Aquaman. She was the cover girl, I think it was, of Marie Claire or Elle in the UK. She had a cover story of a big magazine in Mexico and Australia. They were, one magazine called her Woman of the Year, another one called her Role Model of the Year. So she got a lot of press. She did a lot of press, both in magazines, but also on the press tours and the press junkets that she did for the films.
And were some of those California Style, Marie Claire, Elle, Shape, Glamour?
Yes, there was a lot of them.
Objection leading.
Overruled.
There was a lot of them, so I'm not, don't remember all of them, but it was, GQ, Elle, Marie Claire, the big magazines, both here, the UK, Eastern Europe, in Latin America, and in Australia.
And what about after the release of Aquaman, which was December 2018? How was her press then?
Well, the press tour was doing well, and they wanted to give her a lot more press. And I think up until the defamatory statements came out, she was on deck to do a lot of press. And then it
Objection, no foundation.
Overruled.
Please continue.
So the press and the request for press went silent after the defamatory statements were made, and which then the negative social media campaign ensued after that.
Now, what factors relating to social media does the entertainment industry rely on when considering an actor for a role?
Social media becomes a big part of how studios decide to use an actor or an actress in a film because they want to know how the general public feels about them. They want to know what the consumer feels about that actor. So when there's positive social media, that's a good thing for the actor. When there's negative social media, it can be very bad because not only can social media be directed at the actor or the actress themselves, but it can also be directed towards the movie, towards the movie company, towards the product that the actor or actress is working with. So it becomes very complicated and it can get very messy to continue working with an actor or an actress if there's a lot of negative social media around them.
Okay. And after the Depp Waldman statements, what happened on social media?
After the Depp Waldman statements, social media blew up with negative tweets and Instagram posts and, Facebook posts and Snapchat and trolling, as we call it. It was just negative. According to Mr. Schnell, there was over 1.2 million negative tweets about Amber using hashtags that used the words in the statement of the Depp Waldman statements, that 1.2 million negative statements between April of 2020 and November or January of 21. It's a lot of negative publicity, and there was just a lot of what we call noise around Ms. Heard and her work of any kind.
Can you please describe to the jury what a negative social campaign is?
So a negative social campaign would be when a fan base, or in this case, according to both the forensic statistical analyst as well as Ms. Heard's agents and the product that she was working with, L'Oreal, and her publicist, it was a campaign that included both live accounts, live Twitter, people that actually are individuals, as well as what we call
Objection. May I be heard?
All right, here come.
All right. Other than the bots, please describe the rest of the social media, the negative social media campaign. What's
The
involved?
fan base was very energized by the Depp Depp?
Yeah, let me just
Is it
ask
Depp
you-
Waldman? I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I
There's a
call-
lot in my brain right now.
It doesn't matter. Why don't I do this? Let me formulate a different question. How has the negative social media campaign been used against Amber Heard since the Depp Waldman statements?
Great. So the negative campaign has been used both to, let's fire Amber off of Aquaman, to the product that she had an endorsement contract with was L'Oreal, the makeup. And every time that L'Oreal mentioned Amber Heard and the product together, they would get harassed. Her publicist company was harassed. Any kind of movie that she was related to or television project that she was related to got negative attention from the social media world. Even the charities that she was involved with were getting hammered, if you will, or bombarded by negative social media, which made it difficult to work with Amber on any level because negativity was brought to their product, service, or film.
Okay. And is that negative social media campaign ongoing to this day?
Yes.
Okay. And you were talking a little bit before, I think, about remove Amber Heard from Aquaman 2. What were your observations with respect to that in connection to the Depp-Waldman statements?
Again, the statements, the social media campaign, whether called, remove Amber from Aquaman or, negativity for her relationship in that film, it always tended to use words that were inside the defamatory statements. They became hashtags, right? So, if it was said in the defamatory statement, they were often reiterated in the tweets and the posts.
Okay. How difficult is it for an actor to repair this type of negative social media?
Well, first of all, it has to stop. Okay, so once it stops, then an actor and their team can work slowly and patiently in both, maybe it's press interviews, maybe it's relationship with charity, maybe it's a small role in a movie and they do well and they kind of rebuild their career. But it can take 2, 3, 4, 5 years or more to rehabilitate your career. But first and foremost, it needs to stop. It just needs to stop so that the consumer can get beyond it and then they can reactivate their career by doing their work again.
Describe Amber Heard's reputation after the Depp-Waldman statements.
Well, the reputation, I guess, depends on who you're talking to, but in the public, it's been very negative. In the industry, they like her work, but they can't work with her right now, again, because every time her name is mentioned, the negativity flares up again. So it doesn't make sense for them to try to make a movie which costs millions of dollars and then have a lot of negativity towards the film or the TV show or the product. So her world has been silent in terms of opportunities, and even things that she wanted to work on are no longer available to her.
Has Amber been able to obtain roles after the Depp-Waldman statements?
For a long time, no. Very recently, she was able to do a small independent film from some people who get their financing out of Europe. But up until that, no, she has not worked.
Now, based on the fact that Amber came out of Aquaman, what would you have expected following the release of Aquaman, December 2018, up to what's going on now?
I like to call Aquaman really, Amber Heard's Star is Born moment. It was that moment where not only was she a good actor, but she was now world renowned because she was in the most successful film almost of all time, if not all time, and certainly for DC Comics. She was on the poster with the very handsome Jason Momoa, and they were this couple, and she was strong and beautiful, and it was just this extraordinary moment for her career to take off, right? Her agents were excited, the producers were excited, everybody just wanted to hit the ground running, and let's do more work.
What, if anything, happened to Amber's participation in Aquaman 2?
So for a moment in time, in February 2021, there were conversations that Amber's, I'm going to be technical with you, her option for employment was not going to be exercised. So they may not have hired her again, even though she had a contract for it. There was some question as to whether she was going to be hired again on Aquaman 2.
All right. And did ultimately then she still get hired for Aquaman 2?
She did. Her management team fought very hard, and they ultimately ended up hiring her, but also not only because of what her management team did, but Jason Momoa, the star, and James Wan, the director, committed to her in an email saying, if we are involved in this movie, you will
Objection,
play her.
no foundation, hearsay.
I'll sustain the
Don't
objection.
say what the
Hearsay.
email said, just summarize it or describe it,
Oh, okay.
please.
I'm sorry. I'm just trying to understand this world. So her management team worked hard, and Jason Momoa and the director were adamant that she was in the film.
Objection, hearsay.
Worked hard
I think
to
that's,
be in the
Your Honor, she has to be able to say that.
Well, sustain as to hearsay. Next
Right.
question.
So what, if any, assurances did Mr. Momoa and Mr. Wan give Amber that she would be in Aquaman 2?
Objection, hearsay.
Sustained.
What, if any, are you aware of any chemistry issues between Amber and Jason Momoa from Aquaman?
According to the fact that they did a chemistry test with Ms. Heard and Jason Momoa in order for her to be hired, that is a good indication that they thought the two of them had good chemistry. Obviously, when you look at the movie, they have good chemistry, and the poster, they have good chemistry. So I think it's general awareness that they had great chemistry.
And what, if anything, would also suggest, with respect to Aquaman 2, that Jason Momoa believed they had good chemistry?
He wanted her in the movie.
Okay.
Objection,
I think-
hearsay.
I think she has to be able to rely on it.
Sustained. I'll strike it from the record.
In your review of all of the record evidence, what, if anything, did you see in writing anywhere that there was ever any chemistry or creative issue with Amber Heard and Jason Momoa from Aquaman 1?
There were no communications whatsoever that there was no chemistry between the two.
And what, if anything, did you, in all the record evidence, did you see that the producer or Jason Momoa did not want Amber Heard in Aquaman 2?
I did not see any evidence of that.
Okay. In fact, the opposite, correct?
Correct, again.
Overruled.
Thank you, Your Honor. Now, what, if any, leverage did Amber Heard have to renegotiate her salary under the circumstances of the discussions you were talking about with not exercising her option?
She had zero leverage. She was fighting for her life to stay in the film.
Okay. Now, is it typical for an actor to be able to negotiate an increase in their salary after a successful franchise?
So you may know this already, and so I apologize if you've heard it before. I don't know what's been brought to your attention, but in a franchise such as a potential franchise as Justice League and Aquaman, the customs and practice is that the studio will make an agreement with the actor that incorporates potential future films. So if Justice League does well, they want to know what they're going to pay the actor for the next one and the next one and the next one. And in those successive terms in the contract, the fee for that actor customarily goes up. It can go up by 10%, 20%, 100%. It could double, what have you. And in the case, as Ms. Kovacevic stated in her testimony, that in a successful franchise, that a movie that's made $1 billion, the actors' agents will go back and try to renegotiate that upcoming price tag. So if it was going to be X, they might want it to be 2X or 3X. And that's very standard in the industry to renegotiate your contracts when there's many films in one single contract that each have their own price points.
What, if any, other actors in Aquaman 1 were able to renegotiate their contracts?
Jason Momoa renegotiated his contract very significantly from Aquaman 1 to Aquaman 2.
Do you know roughly how much more?
It went up from the, somewhere between $3 and $4 million to $15 million.
Okay. Did Amber have a contract for Aquaman 1?
Yes.
How much was she paid for Aquaman 1?
Aquaman 1, she was paid $2 million.
Okay. And did that same contract provide for if she was in Aquaman 2?
I'm sorry, I apologize. Aquaman 1, I believe she got $1 million. Aquaman 2, she was supposed to get $2 million. I apologize. The numbers, there were a lot of numbers in that one contract. So Aquaman 1, it was $1 million. Aquaman 2, it was going to be $2 million.
All right. Now, based on your experience and knowledge in the industry, how much would Amber Heard have been able to negotiate her contract but for the Depp-Waldman statements? For Aquaman 2, I'm asking.
Right. Well, as you can see from Mr. Momoa's contract, that went up exponentially, up to $15 million. Ms. Heard, I don't know if she would have gotten $15 million for the movie, but she certainly could have increased it by $1 or $2 million or even doubled it. So if it was 2, it could have been 4 or even 5 or 6, depending on the enthusiasm if it had just rolled from Aquaman 1 to Aquaman 2 without any of this negativity that was created by the Depp-Waldman statements.
What, if anything, happened to Amber's role in Aquaman 2 after the Depp-Waldman statements?
It was diminished.
Now, why would Amber have been featured more prominently in Aquaman 2?
Objection, no foundation.
It's only a foundation.
Okay. What usually determines, or are you able to speak to whether Amber should have been or would have been more prominently featured in Aquaman 2?
Well, a couple things.
Wait, I'm trying to get your foundation. Are you able to speak to that?
Yes.
Okay. And please tell the basis of that and then your opinion.
So there's 2 things. When 2 actors do well in a romantic relationship and, they get married or they're going to have a baby, you want to follow that through, because part of what did well in Aquaman was not only the action sequences, but to have a strong female character having a relationship with a strong male character, it's very empowering, right? So that was working for them in the first place. The poster of Aquaman that went around the world was, one of the main posters was of the 2 of them together standing proud and strong, right, being that couple. And so naturally, as you go and develop scripts in the industry, you want to follow on the things that are working. And according to Ms. Heard, when she read the first script for Aquaman 2, she had a strong romantic arc through the entire film, and then she also got to do some great action sequences at the end of that storyline in that script. So she was featured predominantly throughout the script of Aquaman 2 when she first read it.
All right. And then what happened?
Well, she didn't hear anything, so she wasn't getting the scripts when her colleagues were getting the scripts. She heard that through her agents. And then when she got the script, it was pared down from the first script dramatically. They had her in the hospital very shortly in the first part of the movie called Act 1. They had her in the hospital, and they pretty much had her in the hospital, and then she was going to do this action sequence in the end. She trained 5 hours a day for several months with a trainer to do this big action sequence. And then when she got to set, 2 things happened. One, the costume designer said, I don't know what happened to your role. It got diminished. And
Objection,
2,
hearsay.
Sustained.
All right.
I'm
Go ahead
sorry.
with the second
okay.
one. That's
And
all right.
more importantly, though, this big action sequence that she was going to do at the end of the movie, in the third act, was cut out, and they took it away from her. So it was radically reduced from what it was in the script and what she even trained for while she was preparing for the movie.
And what, if any, changes were made to the storyline?
I haven't seen the movie yet specifically, so I can't really speak to that yet.
All right. And when you say she was in the hospital, what do you mean by, was she injured in the first scene?
I believe that in the first act of the movie, she was injured somehow or had something to do with the baby. I don't know exactly. I'm just going with what Ms. Heard told me about, was that she ends up in the hospital early in this new Aquaman